Welcome to the Stewards Enquiry Royal Ascot preview. What a week we have in store. We've got numerous Group 1s, some fabulous horses coming from all over the world. And Chris Dixon is here with me now to discuss what is a brilliant week.
Tremendous week, Emma, and one which you end up being flat out as a racing fan, punter, whatever it is that you do in this game. It is a busy one for sure, but tremendous action to enjoy. This is sort of the peak of flat racing, isn't it? That I know along the way we have loads of other top class races, but this is the big festival for all that we ever get other big meetings that have got a few days in a row of real quality action. It doesn't come as thick and fast as it does at Royal Ascot during the course of the week in such a condensed period of time, particularly on the opening day of the meeting when we fire into all those top level races to get things underway. But a tremendous
I love it
week
that we start the meeting with such a bang, don't you? I mean, it's just Group 1, bang, bang, bang. And it's just brilliant. And we start with a sensational race as well, the Queen Anne.
Yeah, we do. And as you say, it is a great way to start the week. It's a tough week to get onto the winners, I think, at times. The handicaps are very, very difficult to solve, aren't they? But, you know, there's a few little angles that we can try and unearth. But as you say, we kick off with the Queen Anne and probably sort of, if you were going to hang your hat on any horse winning for the week, for many people, it'd be Palace Pier. Now, whether or not he offers massive punting value is massively debatable, isn't it? But he sets a clear form standard. He's at the top of his game. He's only been beaten once, this horse. And it's a tough ask for the rest of them, really. They need him to underperform because realistically, they are not going to get above the level that he's at with the evidence that we've got previously. So if he's on his A game, then it's a case of playing for the places. If he's not, then it becomes open for one or two of the others. But given how often he wins and shows his form, hard to see past Palace Pier, really.
I totally agree. And we're going to start on what should be perfect conditions. We've had a really dry sort of 10 days or so, and it's going to be dry tomorrow, beautiful and sunny. And then there's forecast rain Wednesday and Thursday. We always get that just to make it really complicated in the middle of the week. But no, we should start off on dream conditions for what's going to be a really interesting Group 1. I think if I was to put something up each way, it would be Lord Glitters, who won this race in 2019. On the book, he's not really good enough, but I can just see him running well, as I say, in a race that he knows how to win. What about the Coventry? What about Wesley Ward's ammunition he's got? Because there's always, every year, plenty of chat about his 2-year-olds, which one's the best and which one's flying. And Calfee Maker's been well touted in the Coventry.
He has. And, you know, I initially went through a bit of a phase of being a bit sick of the Wesley Ward horses that they came over. They looked twice the size of our 2-year-olds.
I know.
And you kind of felt, where did you stand? Where was your chance? And they were always so heavily decked. It's one of those, I could see him completely dominating the 2-year-old races across the week, to be honest. He's got such strength in that division, and he handpicks the horses that are coming to Ascot. And when you hear him interviewed, he talks about how he will work them together to decide which is the best. It's a different sort of MO to how our trainers are operating in this country, isn't it? Where the 2-year-olds, yes, there's some that are very much hard and sharp, but they are looking for that longer term development as well. Whereas I think Wesley Ward is choosing among a precocious bunch which are most ready to come to Royal Ascot and do the business. So he's going to be a hard man to topple in these races. And Coffee Maker was very impressive in that small field at Keeneland on his only start. But I think I'm going to look elsewhere and just go each way for a British horse. I thought Berkshire Shadow was quite interesting, Emma. He was successful on his debut at Newbury. He actually had Gisborne in behind him that day, and he's come out and won impressively since. He's in this field. It was 2 months ago, and they've saved him for this race. I'm assuming that they felt that there was no need to get any more experience into him rather than there being any sort of a setback. But he overcame real greenness to win that day. And Andrew Balding's 2-year-olds aren't often sort of first-time out winners. And if they do, I think they've got the potential to be pretty smart. So I think Coffee Maker, he could blow the field apart, but Berkshire Shadow, each way at double-figure price is a spot of value, I think.
I totally agree. I mean, I've tried to find something to take it on because you just think there's no value. They're so overbet because they're so overhyped. and he's done so well with his 2-year-olds at Royal Ascot. So I actually went for Gisborne as an alternative, as you say, behind the horse you just mentioned, but super impressive. Not many horses win a Newbury Maiden by 6 lengths like he did, and Richard Hannon knows how to turn out a good 2-year-old, and I thought he could be quite interesting. What about the King's Stand? Batash has become a real regular in these tip-top sprints, was second in this in 2019, second 2018, and actually did win it last year, but then had a sensational year. We haven't seen him since winning the Nunthorpe. Is that a slight concern or not?
It is, because he's reportedly had a fracture, hasn't he? He's 7 years of age.
There's been niggly problems. I'm not totally sure of exactly what's what, but the vibe has certainly been good, and this has very much been the aim. He wouldn't be here if they didn't feel they had him in tip-top shape, and him, if he turns up on his A game, is very, very good, isn't he?
He is. If he turned, I mean, Ascot has been the place where he's been at his most vulnerable in the past, and that's the thing that worries me. That and the fact that there must have been some sort of a setback. I'm not entirely sure. I thought I read that somewhere, but whatever it is, that would worry me just a little bit. 7 years of age, had some sort of an injury. As you say, they must be happy with him, because they would have been perfectly happy, you would imagine, to just wait and run him, say, at Goodwood, where he's been brilliant in the past, and just skip Royal Ascot if they weren't happy with him, and aim for a back end of the season campaign. The race does set up quite well for him. I know he's made the running in the past, and he made every yard in this race last year, but he's probably better when there's something charging along in front of him and he can sort of tank along in behind and then pick them off. I always think that's maybe when he does his best. He just goes as fast as he can for as long as he can. I was going round in circles in this race, really. I was really impressed by Winter Power, the 3-year-old filly at York. And Atalis Bay, the horse that she beat very easily, came out and won a listed race at Sandown at the weekend. It's just, there's so much pace, you worry that they're all going to go on and do too much and have a pace collapse. I don't really know where to turn, to be honest, but I think I'll just put up Winter Power tentatively anyway, just because she was so impressive last time and she gets all the allowances. Maybe you can shed a stronger view.
Do you know what? I'm the same. I went round in circles and I landed on Extravagant Kid in the end, because Brendan Walsh trains him, American sprinter, 4th in a Breeders' Cup sprint from a bad draw. Last seen winning a Group 1 in Dubai. This race has been the target. There's lots to like about the American sprinters, as we know. And like you, I just tried to find the fact we haven't seen Batash for 10 months. I liked to look elsewhere for those reasons. But no, I didn't have a strong opinion, and I thought Extravagant Kid was quite interesting.
I quite like the angle. Is the reason I haven't sort of considered him massively was because I don't know him that well, but I think the points you're making are pretty fair. And as you look at his record, the fact that he's fast enough for 5, but he's a Group 1 winner over 6, it's quite encouraging for a stiff 5 like this, and that he will be ridden off the pace by the Tory to maybe pick up the pieces. I can certainly see that. I could be talked into him as well. I think this is going to be a no-bet race for me, but I've said it now, so I'm going to have to stick with Winter Power.
Talking about tricky races, I don't know if you agree, but did you not think the St James's Palace was super difficult?
Really tough race. On the round course rather than the straight course for a mile here, so that's something to bear in mind. I often think on the straight track, you want to be with horses that are ridden with a little bit of patience over 7 furlongs and a mile. Whereas on the round course, you maybe don't want to be quite so far back, because they turn into the straights and you can end up a little bit too far out of your ground. Poetic Flare is kind of the obvious start point, isn't he? A Guineas winner who's been just touched off in another Guineas since then. But I thought that maybe the value lay with Lucky Vega, who wasn't that far behind him at Newmarket, or indeed at the Curragh, despite the fact that at the Curragh, I think ground conditions were probably too testing for him.
Probably the combination of a stiff track with those conditions was probably the undoing, as you say, but it's not going to be the case at Ascot tomorrow.
No, and I like the fact that he's on the round course rather than the straight course. Stall 11, that could be a little bit of an issue for Shane Foley, but I just think you go right the way through his form, and he's got a number of really solid Group 1 efforts. Now, I suppose you can argue that he's been beaten in Group 1s a number of occasions, but he has won one as well. as a juvenile last year. So we know he's up to this level, and he's a double figure price. So, you know, with so much depth to the race, Ballydor have got a strongish hand. Godolphin have got a couple in Highland Avenue and La Barossa. You've got that Guineas form represented. But I thought, what is he, sort of 7-1 or thereabouts? Lucky Vega each way, maybe, at that sort of price. I can see him running well. We know that Jesse Harrington's horses are in good form.
I've also gone for a stab in the dark at something that was a slightly bigger price in this race. And I am guessing because Thunder Moon, as we know him, ordinarily, it is and was a good horse. But quite what happened in the Guineas was too bad to be true. He's back here, and I can only assume we're going to see something a lot better. I'm hopeful we're going to see the true him turn up to Royal Ascot.
If he's in his 2-year-old form, then he's got a massive chance. My worry is that Martin was there working for Racing TV at the Guineas meeting, covering the Guineas, and he felt that he just hadn't really grown since he was 2, and maybe he hasn't trained on to the extent of some of the others. But in a sense, the run was almost so bad that it wasn't just that. So I can see him bouncing back, and I think he'll enjoy the conditions. I liked him going into the Guineas, so I wouldn't be massively negative on him. But Lucky Vega, I think, will run his race, and he'll do each way for me.
What about the Ascot Stakes? Because, you know, normally we just go, well, we need to look no further. Willie Mullins or a jumps trainer, they tend to dominate these big, long staying races. But looking at Willie's too, they're not totally obvious. MC Muldoon and Rayaport, who was in France and was beaten in a maiden hurdle at 4-6 on its only start for Willie. But they are going to be first and second favourite here, and almost you have to ignore them at your peril, don't you?
You do. They've got to be in the mix, really. I mean, MC Muldoon has done well over hurdles. He wouldn't be an obvious type to steer the trip based on what he's done previously. But I do just think that sometimes with these jumps trainers, particularly a trainer like Willie Mullins, they kind of train so much stamina into them that they will just stay, and you kind of find it hard to see them being found out for a lack of staying power, really. Of the two, I preferred MC Muldoon, who's the mount of Ryan Moore. Emmett Mullins could have something to say with the Dovecote winner, Cape Gentleman. He's quite interesting as well. Ultimately, I plumped for a horse at a biggish price each way, Just Hubert, for Willie Muir, Chris Grassick combination. They're going along really well. Obviously, Group 1 success at the Derby meeting with Pile Driver. Danny Tudhope takes the ride on this horse, who is a very strong stayer. We know that from last year's form. I don't think he's on a bad mark of 92. And he looked like all the ability was still there at Haydock on his return to action under Danny Tudhope that day as well. Now, he was staying on strongly over, I think it was 2 miles on testing ground that day. He's all about stamina. We know that he'll definitely stay. He'll be ridden to run well, I think, by Danny Tudhope. He won't be in the mix too soon for him. And I think that this is a stable that are just better than ever right now. So I think Just Hubert is on a fair enough mark. I think he'll run well, and he's a nice enough price for each way punters.
Yeah, I'm a bit like you. I've gone for something at a bigger price, Coeur de Leon, because he won this last year. He was 4th or 5th in 2019, 4th in the Chester Cup last time. Just that type of horse that is sure to be there or thereabouts, whether or not there's a sneaky one in one of the Mullins camp, or, as you say, a few others that are now better than him and more unexposed than him. I don't know. But as you say, you know he stays, and you know he should be there or thereabouts. What about the Wolferton? Have you got a strong view here?
Yeah, I think Patrick Sarsfield will be quite hard to beat in this. He has got form on all sorts of ground, hasn't he? So I think conditions will be all right as quick as they are. It might be a bit of a worry if they're rattling fast, because he hasn't really tried that. His winning form has been on slightly softer than good in the main. But so long as he handles the conditions, I can see him going well. I just think some of his form last year in group races is a notch above what some of his rivals have to offer.
Yeah, totally agree.
I quite like him. Eucan Glen, on a ratings point of view, has got a big chance, but I just don't know whether you can really hang your hat on that inflated rating after Sandown in those conditions last time out. Felix, I quite like the way that he's gone since he's joined this stable. I wouldn't be ruling him out. And Solid Stone is in the mix, but came back to Patrick Sarsfield. The ground is the worry, and he is at the top of the market, but I get the feeling that if they're not happy with the ground as it is, then they won't run him. And so I'll bow to Joseph O'Brien's knowledge on this and let him, if he thinks he's going to take the race in on this ground, be happy to do so. Then I'll side with him.
Well, you're not in bad hands, to be fair. I'm sure he'll make a decent enough decision on your behalf. Blue Cab, I thought, was quite interesting. Obviously needs to improve a bit on ratings, but is very progressive. Absolutely dotted up at Epsom last time when they applied a hood, and that seemed to help. It is just a progressive horse that does need to find a bit more, but could easily. I thought at a sort of each way price, he was one I'd throw into the mix in what looked an open race. And then finally, is Willie Mullins going to sign off in the 6:10 with Soldier? Because this does look to have a very obvious chance.
It does. It's like Cheltenham, isn't it? We get to a big meeting and we're just talking about Willie Mullins having loads of chances. It's unbelievable. But yeah, I think Soldier is going to take quite a lot of beating here. Mark of 103. He's got a small penalty that puts him up to that mark for having won at Listowel 9 days ago. Ryan Moore is up for the ride. He's a horse that has obviously proven himself at a really high level over hurdles. He looked in top form the other day, and I just think that he's probably a good bit better than a mark of 103. I think Throne Hall is the horse that he has to fear most for the Kevin Ryan stable. I like his form, particularly that York run behind Ilarab last time out. But yeah, Saldier for me for Willie Mullins and Ryan Moore. I'm sure that he's a well-handicapped horse.
Totally agree. Yeah, we're very much on the same page in the last race on day one of Ascot. What about the Wednesday? We kick off with the Queen Mary, and Wesley Ward once again could dominate this with Twilight Gleaming, who's likely to be favourite. A 7.5 length winner at Belmont last time. Extremely difficult to know how good she could be.
It is, but she looked a very good prospect in winning on that occasion. And yeah, I'm going to side with her. I do like Illustrating. Illustrating has had a big reputation. They were talking about her as a Royal Ascot filly going into Catterick. Now, it wouldn't be an obvious place to go and run your potential Royal Ascot horse at Catterick, but I think it was just a timings thing as much as anything else. She looked very good in beating a horse, Brian Smarts, that had some previous winning form, and she does have a big reputation. I do think that she will run very well. There aren't any prices to go at the time of recording, so I think if she's sort of an each way price, I'd certainly be considering her. But Twilight Gleaming, with a bit of more experience behind her, having had the 2 runs, winning second time out at Belmont, then I'm going to side with her. The thing that she's got is that form on really, really quick ground. If it has rained in the morning, that might put you off a little bit, but I think we're going to still be dealing with quick ground. And yeah, I'm going to go Twilight Gleaming, Johnny Velasquez to ride.
Yeah, I think, and Beautiful Sunshine was the one I was going to put up as a bit of an opposition, just at a slightly bigger price. George Bowie can do absolutely no wrong. His 2-year-olds have been phenomenal this year, and has won her last couple of starts at Windsor and then at Sandown really quite impressively last time out. What about the Queen's Vase? This is always a race that Aidan O'Brien seems to have about 3 very fancied runners, and this year is no exception. Wordsworth looks to be the first string. Won a Curragh Maiden back in April and then was second to his stablemate. I thought would appreciate the step up in trip, but I thought it was a bit more open than being just about him, to be honest. Yeah,
so do I. I mean, you kind of feel a little bit like with the Wesley Ward 2-year-olds, you know that they've been tagged at it and they've got such a good chance. Aidan's record in this race is such that you kind of ignore him at your peril, but ignore him I will anyway, just because everyone knows that he's got such a good record in the race. Kamari was the horse that I thought looked quite interesting. I liked his debut run at Newmarket when he was dropped in, and it's not an easy place to be dropped in, and the fractions weren't strong, and yet he kept on nicely to finish a promising second. You can't really rate his form massively highly at Yarmouth last time out, but I thought that he was quite impressive. The time wasn't bad, winning by a wide margin from horses that are completely lower level than what he faces this time around. But he's by Debarwi out of a smart mare. There's lots of stamina in his pedigree. He's damn stirred this 1 3/4 trip. He's the first foal out of her. And I just think that he's open to a lot of improvement, really, and this trip should help unlock that improvement. So he's a bit of a less obvious one, and I thought, again, I'm going each way with a lot of these, trying to, as much as possible, go at quite big prices each way in these open races where I don't have really strong views. And I thought Kamari each way might just be a spot of value.
Yeah, I thought I'd go with the Aidan O'Brien, well, kind of second string, Arturo Toscanini. Was second in the Gallinule, which wasn't a bad run. That was 10 furlongs, steps right up, obviously, to this trip tomorrow, I should say. And, we just see it so often. And sometimes I don't think there's that much between this one and Wordsworth, and he's much more of an appealing price. But yeah, all in all, I think quite an open, tricky race. What about the Duke of Cambridge? Because Lady Bowthorpe has been really quite special this year. That was a brilliant performance behind Palace Pier, wasn't it, in the lock-in? She absolutely served it up to him for a while.
She did, only beating a length and a half, and you've got to be honest, a lot of rivals here wouldn't be getting within a length and a half of Palace Pier, would they? So from that point of view, you've got to give her a big positive. Even on her previous run, when she got the better of Queen Power, wasn't it, at Newmarket, who came out and then won impressively herself at York, you can give her a good chance even on that piece of form. And her style of racing is ideal for this track where she has won before as well. So I think there's a massive list of positives for her. And she got a mark of 117. So she's got a bit of a class edge on the rest of these. Queen Power, 113, closely matched with her, obviously, on that Newmarket form. And she's probably in a better place now than she was going into Newmarket. I think she's getting a little more professional as much as anything else is Queen Power. So I think that those two are the key horses. But I'm going to go for Agincourt each way here, Emma. She was only just touched off in this race last year by Nazif, who went on to win 2 Group 1s on the back of that. She was beaten in a very tight photo finish. It goes without saying it was tight in a photo finish, but it was hard to know which way it had gone. She's had wind surgery since last season. And if you look at how much she improved first to second run last year, it was a massive jump forward. She ran a really encouraging race on a return to action. I know that her trainer, David O'Mara, is really pleased with where she's at right now. So she's going to be a fairly big price. And for all I think Lady Bowthorpe will take a bit of stopping, I'll go Agincourt each way.
Okay, what about the Prince of Wales's? I can't wait for this race. I'm really looking forward to seeing Love run again because, great winner of the Guineas, the Yorkshire Oaks, the Oaks, and they hold her in such high regard. I know they think she's literally one of their big guns, and it's interesting we haven't seen her yet. And yet she takes on Lord North, 4th in a Breeders' Cup Turf, won the Dubai Turf on World Cup night, was impressive in this race last year. It's a really good match, I think.
It is a really good match, but probably incorrectly, I've never really been wowed by Lord North. He's never excited me. It's probably a bit harsh.
He was quite exciting in this race last year, wasn't he?
He was quite exciting in this race last year, but still,
I know what you mean.
It's probably completely misfounded, but I do love Love generally. I think just the way that she's gone about everything in her career so far, and particularly those 3 runs last year, none more so than in the Oaks, where I just thought she was hugely impressive. And again, at York, when she bolted up on her final start, she is a real top-notch Group 1 horse. I think, you get your Group 1 horses that they win Group 1s, and then you get your real top-end Group 1s that are a dominant force when they turn up within them. And those Group 1s that they're running, the rest of the horses have got a tough ask to get to where they're at. And with that filly's allowance that she gets, I just think if she's at the top of her game, they're going to struggle to get the better of her, to be honest. And I don't know whether she will be at the top of her game, but
I think she will. I've had really positive updates about her.
Yeah,
so I think she's going to turn up, 10 out of 10 mode. And I think if we see that, I think she'll win.
Yeah, so do I really. And the other thing that I like is we're over 10 furlongs here, aren't we?
Yeah.
She's a Group 1 horse at a mile to a mile and a half. She's quick enough for a mile. She stays well enough for a mile and a half. I think she's just got the lot. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Love and encourage that you've got the positive noises. I'm making her the best bet of the week.
Yeah. Do you know what? She's one of mine as well. Totally agree with you. What about the Royal Hunt Cup? Any views. The draw. Where do you want to be, do you think? Ooh.
I looked at it and I thought maybe you want to be high, looking at where the pace is, but there is pace right across the track. I'm going to go for 2 against the field if that's allowed. Am I allowed 2?
That's allowed. Granted.
So I'm going to go 1 on each side, and then I don't have to factor in the draw too much. I can just think, well, if it's that side, I think that one will win, and this one will win on this side. And I'm actually going to go for the same form line. Finest Sound and Astro King. They were first and second in a race at Nottingham earlier on in the year. Astro King has since gone to Thirsk and really caught the eye with a strong finish from an unpromising position on his latest start in the Thirsk Hunt Cup. And Finest Sound, well, I was impressed with the way that he went on and won on his most recent start at Haydock. They didn't go that quick, and yet he managed to go on and assert, just getting the better of Shaleer, who has since come out and run really well at Epsom, and that race wasn't really run to suit Finest Sound. I think Finest Sound will really thrive in this environment of a big field handicap because he's a strong travelling, keen going horse. So if I had to go for 1, it would probably be him, but I want 1 on each side of the draw. So it's him and Astro King who are closely matched on that Nottingham form.
Okay, I've gone for Tre Fleur, if that's how you pronounce it, each way. I was quite impressed with the way he won at Sandown last time. There were a few sort of positive vibes about him before that race. And basically, he's still not badly handicapped on old form. And I thought he'd go well in obviously what's a very open race. What about the Windsor Castle? Well, we'll start with Wesley Ward and Frankie again. An easy winner of of his only start at Keeneland. How good do you think Ruthin could be?
I thought he, again, looked very good in that race at Keeneland. Scored by 6 lengths on his racecourse debut, and he absolutely powered through that race and then hit the line strongly. I think if I had to nail my colours to the mast on 1 of Wesley Ward's horses, and I've already gone for 1 on this card, but it'd be him, Ruthin. He'd be the one that I like most, because I don't think the opposition is quite as good in this as you would expect from a listed race. And I just think it's one of those really where he's running in this because Wesley Ward's got other options for the other races, other horses to run in them, and he maybe isn't at the top of the pecking order, but I think she is, and I suspect it's such a strong pecking order that's a lot of the reason why she's in here. But I also think that this is the trip that suits her best. She won over 5.5 at Keeneland. I think a stiff 5 here will really suit her well, and I can just see it being one of those dominant Wesley Ward displays where they ping out. And almost sometimes I think with our 2-year-olds, they just don't have that same gate speed as the American 2-year-olds, do they? And they've almost won the race inside the first furlong, and I can see that being what happens here with Ruthin.
Yeah, no, my apologies. I referred to her as he for some reason at the beginning of that chat, but I'm not sure where I got that from. Tipperary Sunset, I thought was quite interesting. I quite like the way that this one won at Beverley. Is 2 from 2, and John Quinn does well with his team, and wouldn't totally write that one off. And then the Kensington Palace Stakes to wrap up day 2. I thought Dreamloper was quite interesting here. Was second behind Lights On, beating a short head, won here last September. I like that. Ed Walker's team are in good form. They're 30% strike rates over the last couple of weeks, and just thought it was a horse that could run well in another open race.
Yeah, I'm with the same horse actually, Dreamloper. I think straight tracks probably suit her best, and I think that a well-run race over this kind of trip is something that will suit her extremely well. I thought she ran well in the hood at the track last time out. It was a very, very open-looking race, but I thought that she would go well in a Victoria Cup. She didn't end up in the Victoria Cup, did she? Whether she didn't get belted out, I don't know why she didn't run in it, but I think that they've probably had a Royal Ascot target in mind for her, and I suspect that she is well handicapped off a mark of 96. So track and conditions probably going to be ideal. And same one as you really here, Dreamloper. And I think actually Ed Walker, a trainer, could be in for a very good week. He's got Matthew Flinders, obviously.
He's got some real ammunition, hasn't he?
Hunt Cup. He's got Starman to come. He's got the filly, whose name I've forgotten ridiculously. You know the one.
Yeah, the good filly.
Begins with P. Premier Baccio, something like that.
Yes. exactly.
Yeah. So that's just 4 of them off the top of my head, sort of. That I think he could be a trainer to keep a close eye on this week.
Brilliant. Chris, thank you very much. 2 intriguing days racing, absolutely tip-top class. I hope the rain doesn't interfere on Wednesday and then make things a complete muddle by the end of the week. But no, really interesting stuff. We've got some good each way ammunition, hopefully, and we will catch up at the end of the week. Thank you. Good luck and punting.